Welcome to this edition of ACN Conversations, a media resource of the Association of Christian Nonprofits. I'm Doug Leslie. Today we begin a four-part conversation with Art Rayner, author of the book The Minister's Salary and Other Challenges in Ministry Finance. Part one of our conversation is devoted to Art's background and answers the question of why he wrote the book. Enjoy the conversation.
Thank you for joining us today. My name is Doug Leslie with ACN Conversations. Our guest today is Art Rayner, the Vice President of Institutional Advancement for Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary and the author of The Minister's Salary. Good afternoon, Art. Thanks for being with us on this.
Hey, Doug. Thank you.
Hey, my pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's our inaugural episode of the ACN Conversations, and so you get to be the guinea pig, so to speak, so thank you for being with us.
I'm happy to do it.
Before we jump into the discussion about your book, give us a little brief synopsis of your background and how you kind of got to this point in your life.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, my role is Vice President for Institutional Advancement at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary. We're located in Wake Forest, North Carolina. We are actually on the campus. If you're familiar with Wake Forest University, we're on the campus where Wake Forest University used to be located. They're in Winston-Salem, North Carolina now. And so I've been working here for about 3.5 years now. Prior to coming up to Wake Forest, North Carolina, I was down in West Palm Beach, Florida, as a administrative pastor at Family Church in West Palm Beach, and the senior pastor there is Jimmy Scroggins, and I served on staff there in the administrative role for 5 years. Prior to that, I was actually in banking, so I was in the banking world prior to God calling me to full-time vocational ministry.
Well, that's part of it. I didn't realize. I didn't know you were in the banking industry. I knew you had a background in finance. I just didn't know to what extent. So that makes me.
Yeah, I was actually working with Wachovia.
There you go.
Before,
which gives you the inside scoop and all the finance stuff we're talking about. Which is
that's right. That's right. I've always had a passion for personal finance. In fact, when I graduated college, my goal was to be a certified financial planner, a CFP, and so I was working hard to make that happen. God had other plans, though. When I was with Wachovia, I was down in the South Florida area with them, and I received a phone call from Jimmy Scroggins, who I knew from previously living in Kentucky, and he said, "Hey, Art, I'm down here. I just became senior pastor of what was then First Baptist Church of West Palm Beach, and I just got here. We're in a financial mess, and we need somebody to come in and help with the administrative issues that we have with the church, with the financial issues that we have with the church." His greatest sales pitch to me was, "I can't guarantee you that you're always going to get paid." And the reason why he said that is because they had just missed 2 payrolls. And so when we were talking about financial issues, they were significant at the church. And he said, "But we're going to have a great time trying to turn this thing around." And
that's always a great pull, isn't it?
For me, it was exactly what I needed to hear. God had been doing a work in my life leading up until that point where I just felt like the career path that I was on was not where God wanted me to be, that there was something else there. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I received that wonderful sales pitch, a light just clicked in my mind that this is what I was supposed to do. And I talked to my wife, who at the time was a full-time student, and so when she said yes, and when she was comfortable, when I knew that she was happy for me to take a job where we knew I may or may not get paid, and she was not earning any income at the time, I knew that this was something that God had in store for me, and so I went on staff with the church. And to shorten the story here, through God's grace and a lot of great and tough decisions, the church turned around financially. Man, they are doing incredibly well now. And then after being there for 5 years, a guy called me up here to Southeastern Seminary, and it's been an honor to serve here at this seminary and the students that go through this school.
Fantastic. That's really great. I mean, hats off to you. Kudos to you for those that are listening and are in the financial side and the administrative side of the church life. And man, you took a job where you may or may not get paid. That's a big deal. So congratulations.
And just as a word of advice, make sure your wife is on board with that before you do it.
That's a good move in almost anything, though, isn't it, Art?
That's absolutely right.
Make sure your wife is good to go. All right, let's get down some brass tacks here. Art, your book is very practical. The minister's salary, I found, and I've had it for a year. I have to admit to that, and wanted to do the interview for a year, but just haven't been around to be able to do it until now. It is so incredibly practical, it's almost off-putting, to be honest. So, which to me is good. It's a good thing. But I love the fact that you get right down to brass tacks early on. One of the questions that I did have for you is, it's so practical. Why this kind of book? What made you say, we need to put down everything that kind of in a synopsis form, which is what it kind of turned out to be. It's not in depth and the end all. And you say that very clearly in the book. It's not designed to be that way. What got you to a point where you felt like you needed to write a book to kind of give some instruction?
Well, it's very simple. I saw a need, really, with those who are right around me. Not just when I was at Family Church, not just those on staff, but those in the community of that area. And I'd also been around church life long enough. I grew up as a PK, a pastor's kid, to see that pastors tend to struggle, once again, just in my own experience, with the area of personal finance. And it's not for a lack of neglect or want. It's just they've spent so much time training and theologically that the personal finance, the practical finance aspect is often left unsteady. And so because of that, there's some very basic questions that arise that they may not have answers to. And so I just simply wanted to help. I just wanted to provide a resource to those that may have some basic questions, or maybe even just want to start for understanding the world of ministerial finance, because there's a number of good books out there, but they're often intimidating to those that are not familiar with this world. And so this gives hopefully a good start for them, and may answer some basic questions that they have.
Yeah, you mentioned you grew up as a PK, and for those who don't know, your dad, Tom Rayner, early on was a pastor, and you mentioned, his struggles early on in the book, financially. Yeah. How much growing up as a PK, how much did that kind of influence your perspective and your kind of heart for these folks who find themselves in these positions? I'm deeply burdened for pastors in their finances, because I understand their struggles. I mentioned this in the book, and so the story wasn't out there for a while, but in one of the churches that my dad pastored, the salary was very minimal, and we struggled to even put food on the table. He struggled to put food on the table, and we had 3 boys, so we were eating a lot. And did you realize at the time that the struggle was there, or were you oblivious to it?
No, I was completely oblivious to it. As any young kid, and I try to remind not just pastors but parents this. Their son or their daughter views them, speaking of the dad, as Superman, as for the mom, Superwoman, regardless. Right. and so the struggles that they face may not. I mean, the child probably is not seeing them, nor I shouldn't say do they care, but there's other things that they care about. They just want a happy household. But so back to the story, there was a point where my parents could not afford to go to the grocery store and put food on the table. So we actually had to go to the church's food pantry and pick out food for ourselves to be able to have dinner. And so once again, in that moment, I didn't fully grasp what was going on. But as I got older, I began to understand the struggle that our family was up against, and it still weighs on me, because I know that we're not alone. There are many pastors that are going through very similar struggles right now with their families. I have conversations on a very regular basis now with pastors that are struggling with their personal finances, and some of them have large amounts of debt. Some of them are just trying to figure out how to budget on a very low salary. And so I have a concern and a burden for each and every one of them.
That's good. Your dad also wrote the foreword to your book, and on page 10 he writes this. Here's what Art gets. He gets that a healthy church has a spiritually and emotionally healthy pastor and staff, and he gets that if pastors and staff are distracted and discouraged about money issues, they are not as effective in their servant leadership of the church.
That's right.
That is a ringing endorsement, Art, by your dad. And so here's the question. I kind of want to unpack a couple of those items in that statement. First of all, for those who are listening who may not be on a staff, how important is the emotional health of a pastoral staff and really the senior leadership of any organization, I suppose, whether secular or religious?
Well, the emotional health is, and we in the leadership world, which I also study in that area as well. I mean, we know that the emotional health is vital to being able to lead any organization, and pastors are included in that. A pastor that is stressed with their financial position will struggle to not just lead their family well, because we know that when there's financial issues, there's typically marital issues.
Right.
Because of the stress that it causes, and so it makes it difficult to lead the family well. In addition, obviously, it makes it difficult to lead the church well, because you're consumed with whether or not you can pay the bills, whether or not you're going to be able to provide food for your family. And as much as we want to trust God in each of those